Sorry for the delay, just finishing up our other meeting. Can I get a motion to reconvene in open session? Moved by Tony, seconded by Sandy. All those in favor? That's approved. Just before we begin, we do acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. For my colleagues, any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Consent agenda items. I think we got 6.1 to 6.6. Anyone want something taken out? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Tony, seconded by Jim. All those in favor? It's approved. Business arising, there is none. Correspondence. Police Service Board reports. I don't think we have any today. Chief of Police reports. Chief, it is the Chief's show, and I think this one is our variance report for December 2025. Over to you, Chief.
Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. Thanks very much. So on behalf of Deputy Fenton, we'll turn this over to our Director of Finance, Kirsten Han. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I will just share my screen.
Look at that, like magic, it worked. It's a good day.
Great. Thank you very much. So this report includes the final 2025 variance results. For the operating budget, we closed the year with a $3 million surplus. This represented approximately 1.2% of the approved budget. As noted in the report, we continue to have very low unspent operating budget results annually. For staffing, we did see a surplus of $4.3 million. The major variances include savings from personal leaves, lower cost of living than originally budgeted, staffing levels being below authorized levels throughout parts of the year, although I will note that as at December 31st, we were above complement. I'll also note that overtime was over budget, but we did see reductions year over year of approximately 13%. On the benefit line, we did see a surplus of $5 million. The majority of that actually relates to a surplus that Sun Life had experienced on their end for extended health, dental, and our long-term disability accounts. They transferred that surplus over to WRPS, which was subsequently moved into our benefit stabilization reserve, which I'll speak to a little bit later. Outside of staffing, we did see some variances in other lines. I'll just touch upon a couple of the larger areas here. First of all, materials and supplies. We did see some positive variances as a result of lower fuel consumption and prices than originally assumed. And lastly, there was a delay in the delivery of some firearm supplies, which we will see those actuals in this year. For services, we did see a positive variance of about $1 million, and that was related to a couple different items. First, we were able to negotiate a reduction in our voice radio managed services contract, as well as we saw lower investigation expenses than planned. Fees were under budget by $1.4 million, and that related predominantly to lower software maintenance fees for software not implemented and or deferred. And we also saw lower consulting and legal expenses than originally planned. And for communication costs, we were under budget by about $900K. That was related to some telecommunication and data costs, some of which we factored into the 2026 budget. And we also saw lower 911 expenses due to the delay in the implementation of next generation 911. From a negative variance perspective, as noted earlier, our interfund transfer reserve line was over budget by $6.8 million. This is the line where we do transfers to our reserves. So we saw a positive variance in our regional voice radio chargeback model of $600K. So that was moved to the voice radio contingency reserve. For our Emergency Services Cooperative Ontario, formerly called Pride Consortium of Police and Fire Agencies. On the police side, we did see a $2.3 million surplus. So again, that was transferred into our ESCO contingency reserve at year end. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, that transfer of the Sun Life benefits surplus of $3.8 million was moved to the benefit claims and stabilization reserve. We will be coming to the board in the springtime with a full reserve and reserve fund report, which will outline what the actual reserve balances are compared to targets and provide information in terms of feeding into the next budget year cycle. I should have noted earlier, but the $3 million overall surplus for WRPS, as per the reserve policy, was moved into the general reserve. So we can have discussions at that point too as to whether transfers between the reserves need to take place. Lastly, from a revenue perspective, we did see a positive variance in our general police revenue that had to do with higher volumes than originally planned for record checks, paid duty fees, and we also saw a number of cost recoveries due to expenses incurred on the WRPS side. And this could be items such as WRPS hosting a training event and then essentially cost recovering from other police services that attended. For capital, we spent 56% of the budget. We saw about a 1% of savings, and 43% of the budget was carried forward to 2026. On the fleet side, we did purchase 67 vehicles. If you're looking at our fleet replacement capital account 50000, you will notice that that's in a deficit, and that's because we were given the approval to purchase a bucket truck, which was fully funded from a grant. So that is completely funded, that deficit that you would have seen. I'll just touch upon a couple of the larger information technology projects. The automated asset equipment sign-out locker and evidence management locker project. We did see some funds spent in 2025, but those were both fully implemented in February. The equipment locker solution at North Division and our evidence management solution at South Division. So we'll see the remaining of those monies spent in 2026. The replacement of the fingerprinting hardware and software solution for all ESCO partners was completed. That was a multi-year phased project. We also worked to replace call recording hardware and software for our communication center. The majority of that was spent in our information technology capital project, with some remaining monies carried forward to next year just to complete that. The human resource information system implementation, that was a project in partnership with the region, completed in 2025 with phase 2. And so that project is now closed. Some of the savings were transferred to other capital projects to fund any concerns with those, as noted in the report. Body worn and in-car video, that project is now also complete with the expansion to Central Division. So going forward, any replacement of that equipment will go through our regular equipment capital project. Next generation 911, as I noted earlier, it was the implementation was the implementation was completed, but there's still remaining steps that need to be done in relation to NG 911. So there was some monies carried forward into 2026 to complete those items. And I will note that a huge majority of this capital project was funded from a grant. And then closed circuit television. This one also was partially covered by a grant. So 100K was funded through the grant, 100K through our capital reserve. Again, the majority of these funds were expended in 2025, but we did carry forward a little bit of money into 2026 to conclude that first phase of the project. And lastly, we had some voice radio equipment expenditures to support crime suppression project. And we carried forward some money into 2026 to complete necessary equipment purchases required for the bylaw dispatching project. For capital, our new capital division, solar panels were budgeted to be installed in 2025. That is not yet completed. In partnership with the region, that it's anticipated to be completed in 2026. And we have also been working on design elements for the remaining third floor. As you recall, the backup comm center was completed in 2025, but there is some additional space on that floor that will be looking to be completed in 2026. 2026 likely move in early 2027 to move some staff from our HQ building over to Central to free up some space at our HQ building here for some staff growth as well. Electric vehicle charging stations, we completed those at South for the public and employees, and Central to support our electric vehicle project. We continued with security enhancements, and I'm happy to say the multi-year project to transition our card access to our new Genetec system was completed. There's plans to put a UPS at our investigative services and South Division buildings. They wanted to complete the generator replacement projects. That was completed for South Division, so the region is working with us to do the next phase of UPS for that building this year. And the HQ campus is also getting a replacement of their generator, and that's not yet complete. So we'll look at that UPS for the investigative services building once that's complete. In and around the spring is the anticipated date. We continue with design work for the Public Safety Communication Center, and there is various renewal projects that are in the works to ensure that our existing buildings are kept in good condition. As part of the collection, preservation, and control of evidence and property policy, we are noting the information as per that policy that occurred in 2025, including any gift cards that were received and how they were distributed, any seized, found, or surrendered money that was recognized, as well as any revenue recognized due to auctions of unclaimed property throughout the year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the report. Questions from the board? Just one on the capital. I think you just went through that there. 43% unspent. I think we go through the budget every year. We target when projects are going to happen. So just speak that when we say carry forward, the projects are ongoing. There's nothing that we've reviewed that would say we're not doing that, so we'll keep the money. It's the projects just the timing of it maybe got stretched out. Can you just explain that? Because I don't want to leave the impression that we weren't working on the projects. We just haven't got to the major spends on some of those projects. So just for those watching, the explanation on that part, which would be no different than the municipalities where they budget for capital projects that may or may not happen in the year that they budgeted it for. You keep those in reserve. So maybe just explain that. I think it's important for the public to understand that.
Agreed. At times, factors may occur that prevent the full spending of a project within the given year. That was a focus when we went through the 2026 budget to ensure that we have the capacity to implement projects within the given year in terms of the requested funds. So we did see some of those lines, like what they were requesting in 2026 go down, factoring in the fact that they would have carry forward work from 2025. But that continues to be a theme in our next year budget process, as well as ensuring that what we request for, we also have the capacity to implement. But yes, you're absolutely correct. They are projects that weren't yet completed, so monies needed to be carried forward to complete them.
Okay, one more question, and then I know Chair Redmond has a question. So overtime was down 13% year over year. We're getting much closer. In fact, I think you made comment that we were at full complement for portion of the year. Do we expect that to continue to trend down when we're closer to full complement? Like, because that was where we were sort of when we're understaffed on uniformed police. It translated into higher overtime. Can you just make, what we expect over time? Will that continue to come down as we continue to we're at complement, but continue to be at complement?
Yes, we continue to work with our internal overtime working group that is looking at overtime levels and have implemented a number of mitigation strategies to address them. In addition to that, with our multi-phased ORH review that was done for Patrol Division, we continue to invest in resources to mitigate potential overtime that's required as well. I'll also be happy to note that as of March 1st, we were essentially at complement for our sworn authorized as well, which includes those expansion positions in 2026.
Okay, very helpful. And we'll you always highlight those things, but I think for the coming month, several years that's useful to kind of correlate. So the overtime and our full complement that's approved for the service. Okay, Chair Redmond and then Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. Kirsten, as always, thank you for this. I sort of zeroed in on the fleet 67 vehicles purchased. And I know that there's a real initiative in the municipal sector from both the province and the federal government to buy Ontario and to buy Canadian. And I know my recollection is there was a bit of a carve out for both ambulances and cruisers, but I'm just wondering, how do those initiatives, if they do impact how we proceed? A lot of these projects are in process right now. So I'm just wondering if there's an impact to WRPS.
Yeah, unfortunately, a fully Canadian built police pursuit rated vehicle is not available at that time. So that would impact any of our marked and unmarked patrol type vehicles. We could, look at that element from an administrative vehicle perspective. However, most of our administrative vehicles are used. So it becomes a bit tricky sometimes to then confirm that they are fully Canadian made. But we have been having those conversations absolutely as to how we could factor that in.
Thank you.
That's a good point. I mean, in this new age we're in terms of procurement and buy Canadian, is that may be something that certainly at the administrative level, the chiefs, and maybe for the board, having a Canadian option would be a lot of police services, a lot of vehicles being purchased. So is that something worth exploring with at sort of a, in terms of the procurement and the domestic suppliers we have?
Well, it sounds like WRPS is very aware of that, and I hope whoever's watching this appreciated the fact that a lot of administrative vehicles are bought used. So I think we are trying to stretch the dime, and I would assume, Kirsten, that you and the leadership team are aware of those initiatives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very helpful. Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. Kirsten, just for clarity for anyone who might be watching, so when we have a carryover of a project, that is, we won't see that project again in the next year's budget, correct? So it's behind us, and it will, the funds will come out of the funds that have been allocated, and if there's any surplus, that may carry over to a future date, but otherwise it's done. And any new budgeting is new projects.
Yes, so with our first quarter variance report, we'll clearly show within the report how much money was carried forward from 2025 and then how much was requested through the 2026 budget process. And then the sum of both of those becomes your total budget that we track to throughout 2026. But we'll clearly show that in the reports for our next quarterly variance report.
Thanks.
Okay, I think that's it. No other questions. Thank you. There's no motion, is there? I missed that several times today. No motion, no motion. Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. Appreciate the update and we'll continue on. Chief, is this crime suppression update?
Thanks, Chair McLean. Yeah, we'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Davis. Hope you'll be providing today's presentation. And I know she's speaking on behalf of all our operational members, including, crime analysis and certainly all of the frontline and investigative positions. So as she launches her presentation, we'll turn it over to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chair Redmond, Chair McLean. Holly has my presentation. She is putting it up for me. Thank you very much. Yes, as the Chief mentioned, our crime suppression efforts are really an all of organization project. And you will see here from this slide, as you recall, we talk a lot about the stratified model and how it's a structured framework that really highlights how we have institutionalized crime reduction in our everyday actions. Similar to how we respond to a call for service, how we actually address crime suppression initiatives is treated the same way. The structure provides our ability to organize and prioritize police work based on trends and patterns. And it also allows us to assign responsibility at the appropriate level within the organization, starting right from the executive level down, all the way to the front line. So whether it's setting priorities, or making decisions around how we deploy resources or how we coordinate or assign responsibility to a problem individual, potentially a prolific offender or a crime pattern, etc. Accountability and responsibility are assigned across the organization. Next slide, please. As a bit of a history of our crime suppression journey, we first adopted the model back in 2022. In 2023, we identified our three goal areas based on both the number of incidents we were seeing an increase, but also the level of victimization that is attached with some of the offenses. So we focused on our robberies, so both commercial robberies, but also person-on-person robberies. We focused on break-and-enters, also commercial versus residential, and we focused on firearms violations specifically. We committed to measurable reductions supported by proactive policing, focused enforcement, and really enhanced crime analysis to direct our resources to where they were going to have the greatest level of impact. In early 2024, we partnered with Drs. Rachel and Roberto Santos, who are the founders of the stratified policing model. And that point in time really allowed us to focus on strengthening our communications across the organization, especially because we are spread out across the region. Also allowed us to look at our governance structure around how we were assigning tasks and responsibility, how we were assigning accountability, but then also how we were creating analytical rigor around the work that we were doing. Next slide, please. In 2024 was the first year we set a 10% reduction for our three goal areas. We recognized a 13% reduction across break-and-enters that year. And with robberies, we recognized actually an increase of a 7% increase there. But that actually reflected broader provincial and national trends that we were seeing that year around robbery-related offenses. So it still remained a significant priority for us. And then for firearms, we recognized a 16% reduction. So in two of the three areas, we either met or exceeded. And we continue to have those three goal areas for 2025 as well. In 2025, we saw an additional 12% reduction in our break-and-enters. And you'll also see there that we increased our clearance rates. And that's something else that we're really paying attention to. And that has to do with information that goes into our systems around an investigation, ensuring that we are completing very thorough investigations. And again, that comes back to the accountability piece. In robberies, we saw an 18% reduction in 2025, and you see our clearance rates remained fairly stable in that area. And in firearms, you see a reduction of 6%. We have a slight decrease in the clearance rates, but that is attributed to the fact that we still have a number of firearms investigations that are still open from 2025. The one difference with firearms investigations is that these are attributed to the number of victims. So if you have one incident where maybe there are 5 victims present, that impacts the number of cases. So it can have an overall impact on that percentage decrease there. Go to the next slide, please. What I've added onto this slide is really to highlight some of the things that we've started to identify in the past 2 years. With respect to our problem areas, we have seen a decrease in citizen-generated calls. So I've used our Kitchener problem area, our Central Division problem area as the example here, where we recognized an 11% reduction in citizen-generated calls for service in 2025. What this means is that actually allows our officers to be investing more time in proactive work, whether it's enforcement, whether it's meeting with community or business owners, or just increased visibility in those areas. So that's a great success. What I can say is that we actually had a decrease in citizen-generated calls across all 3 divisional areas in their problem area, even where calls for service overall may have remained the same or actually increased. So that's a great success story. The middle picture there, citizen-generated calls at a specific problem location. So one address where we are continually responding to, we saw a decrease of 28% in that one location. So again, this doesn't mean that we're not there, but it actually allows us to be there more proactively, engaging with individuals, engaging with staff, etc., and just having increased visibility in the area. And the third one that I added here was really to speak around the efforts around one crime type, and that is theft from vehicles. Between 2022 and 2024, on average, we had about 2,600 theft from vehicle calls. And in 2025, we reduced that number by 38%. And that's by paying close attention to those incidents and also really focusing on a small number of people who are committing the majority of those offenses. So again, a 38% reduction there. And also you see that our clearance rate went from 4.4% up to 12.5% for vehicle theft. So again, another good success story. And we are very lucky to have the relationships we do with our crowns so that when we are rearresting people or who are prolific offenders over and over for these offenses, we've actually seen and had their support in keeping some of these individuals in custody for longer periods of time as well. Next slide, please. What I've shown here on this slide is really an example of the work that our crime analysts do. So our crime analysts are responsible for identifying crime patterns. And in this example, they identified a number of incidents where there were vehicle components being stolen from vehicles. Now, each one of these investigations on their own, you might not understand or notice that the pattern exists and that this is happening. But when they can tie these together, what we then do is we assign this crime bulletin to an investigative team. And in this instance, it was assigned to our central street crime team to investigate. Not only were they able to identify a suspect that resided outside of our region, but when they actually executed warrants, they were able to recover vehicle parts, as well as a substantial amount of controlled substances and drugs and money as well. So it just speaks to the impact that we can have when we're assigning responsibility to these projects, and we're really able to see the impact that it has when we're directing our resources into the areas where they should be. Next slide, please. For 2026, we're currently in the stage of establishing our priorities for the year. So we will again be focusing on firearms violations, robberies, and break-and-enters. But for 2026, we have also added in a 4th priority around retail theft, both opportunistic retail theft that we have seen on the rise, as well as organized retail theft that we have seen, which actually is cross-jurisdictional. So we're dealing with offenders that are not only committing those crimes here, but they're committing it across Southern Ontario and even beyond. So we will have 4 priority goals for 2026. We are also working to reinforce processes. We're increasing utilization of the firearms bail dashboard, and then reinforcing with our frontline officers around investigative steps as well. We have expanded our offender management unit, so they are the ones who are primarily identifying those prolific offenders, both maybe high risk, but also ones that patrol divisions can focus on, really focusing on the 10% of individuals that are committing about 90% of the crime that's occurring. And lastly, it's really looking at, we will be launching our first dashboard to help with measuring and monitoring the progress that we've been making, and really how we can evaluate and attribute some statistical significance over time from the work that we've been doing. So definitely still an in progress process that is happening across the organization as we institutionalize this, and it's a bit of a enhanced culture change as well. Thank you. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Deputy. School board. Chair.
So Deputy Davis, if I can just make an observation, so it really isn't a question other than saying, I think these measurements and these trends, whether it's suppression or resolution cases, really is evidence that we're working smarter as well as harder. So really commend the, I always look for patterns in life, and so the street crime team investigation leads to Hamilton arrest really appealed to me, because it's that macro level, and the bad guys don't stop at the limits of the region of Waterloo. So really commend you and the team for following up on this.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. I think we're at 10.3, search of persons in custody. Who's on this one, Chief?
Thanks, Chair McLean. Yeah, so we'll be welcoming Dr. Hassan Siddiqui from our Strategic Services team, and he'll be providing the search of persons presentation, and he'll carry over to the next item as well. So over to you, Hassan, as we get your presentation launched. Yeah.
Hopefully you can see it.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Well, thank you, Chief. Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. Thank you, as always, for the opportunity to provide this presentation to you. So each person when entering a WRPS custodial facility is searched for contraband, including evidence, tools to escape custody, or any object that could cause injury to themselves or others, including officers. There are now 5 levels of search, and any search beyond a frisk search must be deemed reasonable and authorized by the officer in charge of a prisoner management facility or a patrol supervisor. The primary reason for searches continues to be safety concerns. A frisk search involves the patting down of a person, emptying and searching pockets, as well as the removal or rearrangement of clothing that does not expose a person's undergarments or an area of the body that would normally be covered by undergarments. This may include checking their personal possessions. An intake search is more comprehensive than a frisk search and is done in a more controlled environment. Sometimes there's the use of a wand to detect items, and there's an opportunity for the subject person to indicate what the wand may have detected. A body scan involves the person entering a body scanner, which will then scan them for contraband. The body scan is able to identify items a person subject may be hiding under their clothes without the removal of clothing. Next, we have strip search level 1. During a strip search level 1, the person removes their clothing, one piece of clothing at a time, down to the undergarments. And members inspect each article of clothing in a methodical manner. The person is allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately after inspection, unless doing so would compromise the safety or integrity of the search. And lastly, in a strip search level 2, the person removes their own clothing, one piece of clothing at a time, including the undergarments. And the members inspect the article of clothing in a methodical manner. Again, the person shall be allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately after inspection, unless doing so would compromise the integrity or safety of the search. In 2025, there were 292,878 police occurrences. These occurrences resulted in 15,618 arrests, which in turn led to 4,565 searches. Consistent with what has been observed in previous years, the most common search type in 2025 were intake searches, which comprised 86% of all searches. In 2025, strip search level 1 and level 2 comprised 11% of all searches, as compared to 13% in 2024. However, it's important to note that each search does not necessarily equal a new person. In 2025, 709 individuals came into custody multiple times. These individuals made up 21% of all individuals searched, but they made up 41% of all searches. In 2025, we had more repeat contacts entering custody, and they comprised a greater percentage of searches. For brevity, this presentation will present 2 examples of enforcement action benchmarking. This analytic focus will help us identify the drivers of overrepresentation. By engaging in this analytic strategy, we can move towards understanding what aspects of the system of policing, including policy, procedure, and practice, may account for the observed overrepresentation, so we can further investigate and make changes to address systemic discrimination where needed. So we'll begin by talking about gender. The numbers here in this graph reflect percentages, not counts. The blue bars represent 2025 numbers, with lighter bars for women and darker bars for men. And the red bars represent 2024 numbers, again, lighter bars for women and darker bars for men. In 2025, 818 searches were performed on females. 85% of all searches on females were intake searches. So that's the light blue bar in that intake category. In 2025, 3,663 searches were performed on males. 88% of all searches on males were intake searches. In 2025, we see the overrepresentation of females in strip search level 1, although it's important to note that these represent few searches overall. While we continue to see the overrepresentation of women in select searches, we have not seen a consistent search type implicated year over year. Next, we'll talk about perceived race. So the colored bars here represent different racial groups, and the percentages of types of searches for each race group are presented. To measure overrepresentation, we compare the percentages for each racialized group to the white category, which is represented by the green bar, as recommended by the anti-racism data standards. Unlike in 2024, where we observed the overrepresentation of Middle Eastern individuals in frisk searches, we did not observe any cases of overrepresentation for any race group within a given search type. So in 2025, all of our searches were recorded on the niche custody module. Throughout the year, the module has received numerous changes, either to make reporting easier, some necessary quality of life updates, or to include additional information related to procedural changes. As a result of these changes, we saw improvements in data quality that are highlighted throughout the report. Far fewer cases of missing data. The module remaining consistent through 2026 should lead to further enhanced data quality. In 2025, WRPS unveiled its body scanner to be phased in as Central Division Cell Block. As part of the race and identity-based data collection strategy, we will monitor the usage of the body scanner to assess how its usage may contribute to the increase or decrease of select groups being overrepresented. That's all from me. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Hassan. Appreciate that. Always interesting and important data. Questions or comments from the board? Tony.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Quick question on the intake searches. On your report, you stated there is no overrepresentation of the various segments on race-based data for intake. Is that attributable to actual process or information or maybe more process change that we've had based on accumulating this race-based data and how we implement it and change the policing model? Is there a congruency between the two, or is it more just a result that has really no congruency to any change behaviors on the police services? Does that make sense?
Through you, Chief?
No, go ahead, Hassan. You got this. Yeah.
Yes. So I'll note that within the context of intake searches specifically, we have not historically seen racial overrepresentation. Intake searches make up the majority of searches for all race groups. So we haven't historically seen any overrepresentation when we look at our enforcement action benchmarking model. It's important to note that even when we look at disparities, the disparity itself cannot tell us why we are seeing overrepresentation or why we aren't seeing overrepresentation. Ultimately, we need to dig deeper into the data and work with community hand in hand to better understand the context of the data and any solutions that may or may not be necessary based on what the data is telling us. But at least within the context of intake searches, we haven't historically seen racial overrepresentation.
Yeah, and I guess my question was leading more towards, looking for text that has been coming out of the race-based data that we've been accumulating and examples, more tangible examples besides numbers, but more tangible examples of how we are, trying to understand the narrative or what the data is telling us. That's what I was trying to gain from this. Sorry.
No, of course. I think one example, if it's okay, again, through you, Chief. One example of where I think the race-based data collection strategy has been so impactful actually has to do with the implementation of our body scanner. We work very closely within the strategy with our policy procedure unit. I'm very lucky to sit next to them in this office. And when the body scanner was unveiled, we had discussions right from the get-go about how do we monitor this data? How do we ensure that we are able to, keep our systems accountable and track overrepresentations as they occur? And in doing so, we were able to take a proactive approach towards ensure we had a human rights framework towards the usage of this new tool. And so, I'm very grateful to continue to work with so many people throughout the service in implementing the race identity-based data collection strategy as a strategy, rather than just as analyses within a report.
Well, I appreciate that. That puts more tangible substance to the data that we're accumulating and how it's impacting the way we do things. So I appreciate that. I look forward to more of these examples that you've just mentioned as we move forward.
Good. Okay, no other questions on this one. I think you're up next again, Hassan, on use of force Q4 2025. Is that right? Or Chief?
Yeah, just on behalf of Deputy Fenton, to keep things moving, we're welcoming Superintendent Beth Houston, who oversees our organizational culture and professional development division, and she and Hassan will provide our use of force presentation together. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Hassan. Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. I'm pleased to join you this morning for our use of force statistics for 2025. The current presentation covers data from use of force reports submitted from January 1st through to December 31st for 2025. In this presentation, we will talk about both reportable incidents and use of force reports. A reportable incident refers to those incidents that require a use of force report by legislation and/or WRPS procedure. A single reportable incident may generate several use of force reports, as one is required for each officer. And each use of force report is subject to 3 layers of scrutiny. First, by the staff sergeant of the platoon or unit, next by the senior leader of the unit, branch, or division, and then finally by a sergeant in our training and education unit. Next slide, please. In 2025, there were 292,878 CAD occurrences, which resulted in 15,618 arrests. There were 421 use of force incidents in 2025, and this is a decrease from the previous year, where there were 461 use of force incidents. Likewise, there were also fewer modernized use of force reports submitted in 2025 as compared to 2024. Overall, in 2025, the proportion of police interactions involving force has stayed the same as previous years at 0.1%. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 2025, 74% of use of force incidents were initiated by citizen-generated calls for service.
13% of use of force incidents were as the result of officer-initiated calls, while 10% were the result of warrants. As a reminder, a full incident-by-incident summary of Q4 use of force incidents can be found in Appendix C of the report. Next slide, please. This graph depicts the number of use of force reportable incidents separated by incident type. Across all 4 quarters of 2025, the most common incident type represented in use of force incidents was weapons calls. Next slide, please. In 2025, relative to 2024, there were fewer use of force incidents where officers deployed their handguns or rifles. There was a slight increase in the number of incidents where an officer employed physical control. Next slide. In terms of CEW usage overall, relative to 2024, we observed an increase in the number of incidents where an officer used their CEW. The numbers in 2025 are more in line with what we observed in 2023. Slide. And in 2025, there were 17 subject injuries as a result of use of force incidents compared to 11 in the year previous. There were no fatal subject injuries in 2025. And at this point, I am going to turn you over to Dr. Siddiqui to walk you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Houston, and thank you everyone again for the opportunity to present to you. So in 2025, there were 65 perceived Black individuals in use of force incidents. This corresponded to 18% of all individuals. There were 27 perceived Middle Eastern individuals in use of force incidents, which corresponded to 7% of all individuals. And white individuals were again the most represented group in use of force incidents, totaling 224 individuals, which represents 61% of all individuals. Relative to the population, Black individuals were overrepresented in 2025 use of force incidents by a factor of 3.83, which is the same as 2024. Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in 2025 use of force incidents by a factor of 2.33, which was also the same as 2024. Unlike in 2024, these were the only 2 groups overrepresented in use of force incidents. So in 2024, Latino individuals were also overrepresented. As part of our enforcement action benchmarking strategy, we can dig deeper into the data. For example, we can identify which incident types specifically are sort of implicated in overrepresentation. So in 2024, we observed overrepresentation of racialized individuals in many different incident types. In 2025, we now see overrepresentation in only one incident type. Black, East and Southeast Asian, and Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in use of force incidents resulting from warrant-related calls. Additionally, we examined the use of force incidents where weapons were perceived versus not. What we found was that Black, East and Southeast Asian, and South Asian individuals, all relative to white individuals, were overrepresented in incidents where a firearm was perceived as present. Unlike in 2024, we did not observe any racial overrepresentation in incidents where no weapon was perceived. Thank you so much. As always, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take.
Thank you to both Houston and Mr. Siddiqui. Karen Quigley-Dobbs.
Thanks very much for the report. I don't know which one of you wants to take this question. I'll let you decide. You mentioned that one incident could generate a number of reports from different officers. And I'm just wondering, how does this impact the data and the related findings with regards to disproportion or overrepresentation?
Sam, I'll let you go.
Sounds great. Yeah, so in previous years, we used to analyze at the report level, and that was sort of captured when there were multiple reports within a given incident. However, what that ended up doing was it wasn't effectively representing the number of individuals we were actually interacting with. So for example, on any given case, if multiple officers are required to de-escalate the situation, it might seem as though we're interacting with more individuals from a specific group. As a result, we've pulled the data back to the incident levels. We're more better at tracking specifically individuals we're interacting with rather than the number of reports filed by officers.
Great, thank you very much. That's helpful.
And I don't know whether it's for Superintendent Houston or Dr. Siddiqui or Chief. I'm just astounded when we get these reports to say over the course of the year, I think it was 293,000 occurrences, like interactions. And by the time you really get down to it, you have only 420 or just over 400 report, in this report, the use of force. Where does that leave us? I mean, I guess my question ultimately is, how would that put us in terms of other services? Because I think part of what we're doing here is trying to collect the data in the same way so that we can compare ourselves from community to community and service to service. Have we got enough data to kind of show whether we're kind of an outlier or whether we're good or bad or where we fit? I mean, I'm just interested in, because we started collecting it this way so we could specifically do that. How would you characterize where we're at, and do we have enough data to be able to start to draw some conclusions about how we fit into the broader policing universe, if you will?
Sure. I'm happy to take this one. I see Mandy's jumped on too. So we know, so from the highest level that we're in line with our comparable organizations. You can see like 99.9% of interactions don't involve use of force. And when it comes to the reporting, we have better data than ever in terms of the consolidation of a standardized use of force report through ministry guidelines. And then on top of that, the team that you see here right now is helping to lead the province's, the Ontario Association of Chiefs Police initiatives on race and identity-based data collection. So I'll turn it over to Mandy just to punctuate that. But I would say that we're certainly, I would say, a leading organization within the province with not only our professionalism, our training, our execution of our duties, but in the reporting and the accountability standards that we expect and that I know our community expects as well. So Manny, you can maybe just add on top. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So just adding on to that, nothing really additional other than through the OACP working group, we're working with police services to have comparable returns on our data. So at the provincial level, we can talk about de-escalation tactics and the effectiveness of that and where those show up, not just in use of force, but across all policing interactions.
And just to finish off, so with every passing year when Hassan and Beth and others come on, we'll have better data, not only here, but how that translates provincially, which presumably gives us, the what's next, like the how to continue to get better, right? So, because it's early days, like it's just like two years into the ministry guidelines, it's fairly new, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so it was released in 2023.
sorry, Hassan, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, the ministry document was released in January 2023.
Okay, so we're still at the front end of this. So anyways, it's very interesting report. Thank you for that. Any other questions of the board? I don't see any. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Chief, annual hate motivated crime report, Inspector Matthias, or you?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So we're welcoming Inspector Aaron Matthias from Community Safety and Partnerships, and also Geraldine Stafford, our manager of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, providing a presentation on hate crime reporting. And thanks very much. Over to the team.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Chief Chair McLean and members of the board. Thank you for the assistance with our slide deck today. Geraldine and I are very pleased to join you today to provide an overview of the 2025 Waterloo Regional Police Service Annual Hate Motivated Crime Report, outlining statistics, the service's response to hate motivated crimes, and our ongoing commitment to the Region of Waterloo Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, Combating Hate Action Table. We can move to the next slide, please. As we know, community safety wellbeing plans are a legislated municipal responsibility under the Community Safety and Policing Act, which requires the identification of community risk factors and the development of strategies and measurable outcomes through multi-sector collaborations designed to mitigate these risk factors. Locally, anti-hate, anti-racism, anti-oppression, as well as equity, diversity, inclusion form fundamental pieces of our region's community safety well-being framework. As with the other listed priorities here under the plan, effectively combating hate will take a multi-sector commitment and community collaboration to develop initiatives aimed at intervention, prevention, and social development. And we'll hear about some of those efforts today. Just a note, the data from this report includes suspected and confirmed hate-motivated crimes reported to the police service in 2025. We can move to the next slide, please. As we move into the body of the report, take a quick opportunity to review our applicable definitions. So hate crime refers specifically to a police-reported criminal offense designated in the Criminal Code of Canada, for example, the public incitement of hatred. Additionally, we have hate-motivated incidents and hate-motivated crimes. A hate-motivated incident refers to an incident where an individual demonstrates hateful behavior towards someone else on the basis of identity, but without breaking any laws. Police-reported crime motivated by hate or hate-motivated crime refers to a criminal offense with an underlying hate motivation. So commonly, we use the example of someone spray painting graffiti of a swastika on private property. To quickly review the statistics on this slide, in 2025, there were 224 hate-motivated crimes reported to the Waterloo Regional Police Service. This is fewer than the 237 incidents reported to us in 2024, representing the second consecutive year-on-year decrease, albeit a smaller decrease between 2024 and 2025. This may be indicative that 2023 was an anomaly in terms of police reporting. Next slide, please. In 2025, we see the majority of hate-motivated crimes were non-violent offenses, representing 53% of those reports versus 47% of violent offenses. This is a change from 2024, where we saw the opposite. Hate-motivated crimes were most often mischief-related calls, representing 43% of those, and reflect crimes, again, like hate-motivated graffiti. 18% of hate-motivated crimes in 2025 were level 1 assaults or simple assaults, the same as our rates in 2024. Move to the next slide, please. Next, we'll look at hate-motivated crimes categorized by hate crime type. As observed in previous years, hate-motivated crimes most often target victims on the basis of race, and we see that representing 57%. In 2025, as compared to 2024, we observed an increase in the number of hate-motivated crimes targeting individuals on the basis of religion. We see a rise up to 22%. And finally, Statistics Canada introduced a new category, immigrant or newcomer status, which tracks hate-motivated crimes related to xenophobia. And in 2025, this was the third most common type of hate-motivated crime, 11%. And from here, I will pass to my colleague, Geraldine Stafford.
Thank you, Inspector, and hello, everyone. So looking at the data, building upon what Inspector has just presented, we can further break down the hate-motivated crimes by the specific, I guess we need to move to the next slide. Sorry, I just jumped into it. So yes, we can further break down the hate-motivated crimes by the specific motivation within each type. So we have some examples. So of the hate-motivated crimes targeting individuals on the basis of religion, when we look deeper, we see 86% of that is targeted towards Jewish individuals. And then another example, when we look at motivation based on race, we see 44% of the race-based hate-motivated crimes targeted toward Black individuals. Finally, another example, 80% of all hate-motivated crimes on the basis of sexual orientation is reflected generally hate toward the 2S LGBTQIA community. Next slide. Thank you. So whenever a hate-motivated occurrence, both criminal and non-criminal, is reported to WRPS, we have a really robust response. First, frontline patrol will attend the call, which is really an important distinction in how we respond. They will then notify the Hate Crime Investigative Unit, who can provide guidance on next steps, as well as track incidents in the context of wider trends across the service and across the province. With respect to the latter, they also work with the Hate Crime Extremist Investigative Team, which is HICIT, and which is a multi-service collaboration addressing hate-motivated crime. We are really proud to have HICIT housed at WRPS. The hate crime investigator will also notify our EDI unit, who will reach out to the victim to provide trauma-informed, culturally competent support. Victim services will also be brought in at this stage. We also understand that some victims are not open to the support at the time of occurrence, so we ensure that if time and space is needed between the occurrence, we remain accessible and flexible in our support options. The EDI unit also works on community messaging and providing presentations to the community regularly on hate crime statistics. The EDI unit and the hate crime unit collaborate on bi-weekly virtual chats with interested community members, providing updates on hate-motivated occurrence within the region. This real-time account has been really successful in bringing community into looking at interventions in combating hate. Finally, we're always innovating at WRPS. We have applied for and been awarded a number of grants for our work in combating hate. Much of the work our service does is embedded within the community and safety well-being framework in order to maximize the impact. Next slide. So before I turn it over, I'll briefly introduce two of the internal highlights from the past year, and then I'll turn it over to Inspector Matthias. So in 2025, WRPS hosted its first hate crime conference. This conference brought together police professionals from different services across the province alongside academics and community members to discuss best practices in combating hate. 2025 also saw WRPS formalize its hate crime unit, an investigative unit specially trained to respond to hate. The hate crime unit sits within our general investigations unit. I'll turn it over to you, Inspector.
Thanks, Geraldine, and continue on with the theme of collaboration. And we look towards our Combating Hate Action Table, who launched the We All Belong Here campaign in fall of 2025. Phase 1 of this involved the launch of a website as well as pop-up events throughout the region, many hosted by system partners and community agencies. To date, we've seen 29 activation events across the region. And in that small picture there, you can see a very brightly colored Grand River Transit bus with campaign branding on it, which you will see around the region. In 2024, the service was awarded a Ministry of the Solicitor General Proceeds of Crime grant to collaborate on community projects to combat hate within our region. And WRPS used this funding in collaboration with the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan to develop a related campaign website, webelongwr.ca. To date, this website has had approximately 9,200 unique visits since its launch in October and recorded more than 200 anti-hate pledges from community members. That concludes our presentation. We'll move to the next slide. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you to both Aaron and Geraldine for the presentation. Questions from the board, Tony, and then Karen.
Yeah, it's for you, Mr. Chair. Mine's more of a comment. I want to thank you for the presentation. But I also want to thank both of you and your teams for the continued leadership and involvement in this crusade against hate within our broader region. I wanted to note as well that our very own Geraldine Stafford was recently awarded the Michael R. Follett Community Leader Award. So I wanted to personally congratulate her on behalf of all the great work she's done on behalf of the service and for our community. So congratulations, Geraldine, as well.
Thank you, a very worthy winner. Karen, Reverend.
And I just would like to add my voice of congratulations to Geraldine and just say that Geraldine's been working in this space for many, many years, and it's wonderful to see her skills and experience now being married with all these initiatives at WRPS. So well deserved, Geraldine. I actually wanted to ask a question. The frequency within hate crime types, if I add them up, 86% religion, 44% race, and 80% sexual orientation. So my takeaway from that is that there may be more than one attribution of this hate crime, and I'm just wondering if that assumption is accurate.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can take that. Sorry, I wasn't sure. And actually, I have Hassan, I just saw jumped in, which is fantastic because he, I think, sleeps with the numbers, so he understands them.
The second there's a numbers question, I hear a percentage sign, I have to turn my camera on. Those percentages are within the category. So that 88% with respect, 86% with respect to religion is 86% of the religion-based hate-motivated crimes. The 44% of the race-based hate motivated crimes is like a separate bucket that we're looking at. But you did bring up a good point that in 2025, actually, Statistics Canada gave us the first time an opportunity to implicate multiple different groups within a specific incident. Sometimes we'll have hate motivated crimes that target individuals on multiple identities. And so that level of intersectionality was not captured before 2025. So we definitely do have incidents that have multiple groups reflected.
Thank you very much.
I had one question, and I guess it's, because I'm not very good with numbers to begin with, but Jim was commenting, in 2019, I think there was 24 reported in 2024, peaks in 2023 at 364. It's coming down over the last 2 years, but I guess the question I have is, I hate using the word COVID, but we had, does COVID have something to do with that? Or is it that we're getting more people reporting? Like, how do we make sense of that huge increase? And it's still gone from 25 in 2019 to 224. Is this the work that we're doing to invite people to report more? Was there something culturally like the circumstance around the pandemic? Because I mean, it's still alarmingly high from where it was in 2019. But if that's just because, I think you were pointing out, we're gathering the information. What accounts for that? So I don't know. It's a numbers question. Maybe it's Hassan, are you going to take a crack at that one?
I'll start, Chair McLean. So really good question, and it speaks to, I think, the collective awakening that we've had as a country and certainly as a community related to identity-based harm just generally. So some of the increasing you've seen is the criminal code definitions of hate crimes are very specific for certain offense types for what is categorized as a hate crime and that can be prosecuted. But what has changed across the country is the focus on hate reported incidents to police. And so when you see that rising number of reports and then a spike in 2023 across the country, we can attribute a lot of that to the October 7th incidents and then the fallout from the Middle East and both Israel, Palestine, and a lot of reporting. And going back to Chair Redmond's question about proportions, we continue to see about half, and sometimes more than half if you add immigrants and newcomers related to race and ethnicity as the highest category of identity-based hate crime reporting and hate incidents. About 22% related to religion, and then 6.7% related to sexual orientation. So the story that we tell very publicly is we have a high level of hate reporting within Waterloo region, disproportionate to communities larger than us, we believe, because of the strength of trust in our institutions, including police and our partners. So similar to intimate partner violence and sexual violence, there's a silver lining to the high level of reporting. And I can tell you that police leaders across the province and across the country are really honing in on the drivers of hate, but also the responses and the solutions that we're committed to. So your question is very deep, and I don't know if Hassan or others want to add some context to that as well.
I think you captured it perfectly, Chief. I think the point brought up about 2021, I'll just close this loop about congratulating Geraldine about her Community Leader Award. I definitely think the increased visibility, the increased focus on community engagement that our services continue to commit to, both as part of our general strategy and our EDI strategic plan, has definitely contributed to our community feeling more comfortable reporting police-reported hate-motivated crime. So much so that even in our, when we were working on the collaboration of the Combating Hate Action Table, everyone at the table was happy to say, yes, add report it to one of the action items of the campaign. There's a sort of really strong emphasis throughout all of our system partners that when it comes to hate, reporting it to police is a necessary step. And we invite always reports, both criminal and non-criminal incidents, so that we can keep track of what is going on in our region and support our community the best that we can.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I noticed there's this new category, immigrants and newcomers. I'm trying to, it's a material number, like it's 11% or something. But I'm trying to differentiate, how do you determine a hate crime specifically to an immigrant or a newcomer? And that it may not be, blurred into some of the other ones, be it based on race, religion, sexual orientation. I'm sure it's because of the recipient and, if they're a newcomer or an immigrant to the country. But I'm wondering if there's more to it. Is it counted in another category as well? I don't know if anyone can add a little bit more context to that new category. I'm trying to figure that number out.
Hassan, do you want to try that one? Just because I think you understand the nuance of the category. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we get training from Statistics Canada on how to use these different categories. So, for example, the hate crime sergeant that we now have is trained to categorize this data. Our officers can only use the information that is included within the police report to categorize. So, for example, if somebody makes a statement to somebody else like, go back to your country, there may very well be a racial component to that statement. And indeed, we may have cases where, and we did have cases where there may be an incident that is categorized both as race/ethnicity and immigrant/newcomers to Canada. But if all we have in the police report is go back to your country, then the category that best defines that incident is the immigrant/newcomers to Canada category. But like I said, as you suggested, Tony, if we had a case where somebody said, go back to your country, and then they added on to that another comment, another like specific country or a specific racial slur, then we would categorize that as both immigrants/newcomers to Canada and race/ethnicity.
Okay, yeah, that answers it. It still kind of muddies it a bit for me, but it does answer the question, because it could be still racial motivated, right? Unless you're walking around with a sign that says, I'm a newcomer to the country. I mean, it's still, so that's where I was just trying. I want to make sure that we have a fair representation, so we can attack whatever specific hate was attributed towards that crime.
Yeah, and we have seen that in the work that we do with the immigration court out of the region. A lot more of those communities being targeted for saying you are an immigrant, right? Regardless of those other pieces. So I think that's part of the reporting, is that it's the reporting of the people that are reporting that's the reason they're being targeted, right? Is as being an immigrant, not necessarily one of the, and so we hear those stories in our belonging, in our settling groups of some of the challenges that newcomers face. So I mean, probably more work to be done, but as we continue to monitor that, I mean, the fact is, all that new employment and the growth of our community are gonna come from people that don't live in the community right now, so we better figure out that part of it, right? Because there's gonna be more and more newcomers as we grow towards 1 million people, so more to be done though. It's good to raise the question. And I'll just as we finish off, add my congratulations to Geraldine as the community leader of the year, which is the Michael R. Fall. And I think this is important. There's recognized for not only her volunteerism in the community, but as a mentor to young people, and in particular for having brought Caravan Ignite and celebrating diversity, and having been the first caravan outside of Toronto here in the region of Waterloo. And she never takes a break, because when I was in Grenada in February, she arranged that I could bring greetings from the Waterloo Regional Police Service to the deputy chief on Curacao Island in Grenada. And so we had a visit. We discussed public order, because the carnival was on at the time that we were there, and weather. And it was minus 30 here, and it was 30 degrees in Grenada. So we had great discussion about that. So okay, nothing further from the board. Thank you, everyone. Chief, I think you're last up here with Chief of Police report.
Okay, thanks very much, members of the board. Very proud to provide the monthly Chief of Police report. And I'll start things off with congratulating many of our investigative teams that worked over many months in collaboration with the Sault Ste. Marie Police and the Ontario Provincial Police for a very complicated series of drug trafficking investigations, seizing well over $1.5 million of value of drugs and other weapons and paraphernalia. Multiple search warrants across multiple jurisdictions were carried out between January and March, and want to congratulate all the investigative teams for their efforts and their success in infiltrating a network of very complicated drug trafficking. Also want to recognize just some great proactive work, an example of many of our efforts that occur every day. So on March 1st, a traffic stop was conducted. Proactive patrol led to a suspended driver being pulled over, and ultimately drug trafficking evidence was found, also including a knife, pepper spray, baseball bat, and restricted firearm as well. So this is the type of proactive work that's occurring on our frontline patrol every day, leading to these successful results. I also want to highlight an example of a complicated break-in that occurred on March 5th in Breslau, where there was a break-in that occurred. So stolen property from the home, but also including firearms from the home. So just recognizing that there are registered and stored firearms that are uncovered through the course of our investigations, and our investigative efforts are continuing through the break-and-enter, auto theft, and robbery unit. And lastly, highlighting some of our operational efforts, we have responded in the past month to two concerning incidents, carrying forward a trend of the past couple of years of swatting incidents, which is the triggering of emergency services to reported violence and crisis. On March 6th, we responded to a residence for the report of a shooting that had occurred, and similarly on March 9th, a very elaborate response to Grand River Collegiate Institute with a report of violence carried out in the school that led to a multi-hour lockdown and various impacts upon the school community as well. So our investigative efforts continue. We have had success in carrying through these investigations in the past, major impacts on our operations and significant impacts on our community. As always, our road safety efforts are continuing, primarily focused on the fatal 4 offenses. You can see displayed the number of offenses that were captured in the month of February. And as the warmer weather continues to tempt us, we know that our roads will become busier, and our efforts will continue through enforcement and visibility throughout the region of Waterloo. We are very proud to have partnered with both school boards, the Waterloo Region District School Board and the Waterloo Catholic District School Board, to launch our partnership for Not in My City, our efforts to create awareness and our partnership related to human trafficking throughout the region of Waterloo. So these two partners will not only promote the campaign throughout their staff and educator community, but also to the broader student community. And very proud of this partnership that continues to grow with multiple institutions coming on board. We participated this year in the Polar Plunge, supporting the Special Olympics, raising over $36,000. I'm very proud and thankful for all the participants, the supporters, and the sponsors who made it a really fun, amazing event, and on behalf of the Special Olympics. Throughout the month, many campaigns such as the Anti-Bullying Pink Shirt Day and also International Women's Day that saw us connecting to our community, and also many internal initiatives bringing forward our membership efforts. And we're very proud to have launched the Chief for a Day competition and contest, open to grade 5 to 8 students who want to replace me and the deputies in our role for a day. And we're linking this opportunity for our Hearts and Heroes Award Gala that will be held on November 5th, 2026. So that contest is open right now, and we really look forward to those amazing submissions of the future leaders of our community. So as always, we're happily and heavily engaged in a number of celebrations and connections across the community throughout the month. And we know as the warmer weather continues into spring, those efforts will continue. So subject to questions or comments from the boards, that's the Chief of Police report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Questions or comments? Chair Redmond.
I'm gonna make two quick comments if I can. I happened to be at the launch with the sexual assault team that we're launching online dating safety map, and that happened on March the 6th, I think. And I know Deputy Davis was there, and it was just a really important tool for people that are online dating that allows them to investigate the safety aspects of online dating. So whatever we can do to promote that, it was great to see WRPS there in partnership. And I just also wanted to talk about the swatting incident, and Chief, thank you and your team and your communications team for giving updates, because it was very, very troubling. It impacted so many families, and I think that kind of real-time update for communications is absolutely essential.
Particularly with recent events, for sure. Other questions or comments for the chief? If not, thank you, Chief. Appreciate the report. Moving on, new business, there is none. Future agenda items, don't see any. Information items, there are none. Just as a note to the media, once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into the Zoom with the login details that were provided, where Chief Crow and myself will be available to take questions from the media. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Jim, seconded by Mayor Shantz. All those in favor?